911 was called. The drone responded. Jurisdiction that has Skydio as a first responder, and you call for help. The police can have a drone on station under 2 minutes, a much faster response rate than a patrol vehicle can get there. It can provide insight back to the responding officers. There were 2 kids that were out back firing a handgun, so legitimate danger. And then the officers showed up, but they were able to know from the overwatch, from the drone, that these are 2 8-year-old kids. Let's actually diffuse the situation and keep people safe.
I love public safety as a use case for AI. No human in the loop needed. From call in to dispatch to data gathering can all be done agentically.
This is not a 5-year away vision. This is totally possible today, and that's what makes it so exciting.
When you say physical AI, what do you want people to imagine? What's the image you want to see in their head?
I love this question. I'm thinking...
Hey climbers, thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Climb. Today, I'm so thrilled to have my friend TJ Rylander, general partner of N47, join me on the show today. N47 is a global firm with over $2 billion under management, where TJ invests in enterprise cybersecurity and robotics in companies like Skydio, Luminary Cloud, Encord, and Harmonic Security. Before N47, TJ spent over a decade at In-Q-Tel, helping the U.S. intelligence community work with companies such as FireEye, Cloudera, and Pure Storage, from early product all the way to IPO. At N47, his focus is on AI in the physical world, where he backs deeply technical founders working on real machinery, infrastructure, and security problems. Given my passion for dirty, dusty, and dangerous industries, you can already tell this is going to be a fun one. TJ, thank you so much for joining me. Let's talk physical AI, man. This is our world. When you say physical AI, what do you want people to imagine? What's the image you want to see in their head?
Ultimately, this is AI applied to everything that isn't just a pure software experience. And if you imagine, great examples are, hey, what happens if the next car you go to buy is more beautiful, more innovative, and more performant than anything that you could have imagined?
Yeah.
That can be on the back of incredible applications of AI to design for physical products. This is me referring to the AI factory that our company Luminary Cloud has developed, and how it can collapse the design engineering cycle from something that takes weeks and months to more rapid, more instant feedback to designers. And that speeds time to market, better products. It's one example of how we all can benefit in our built life from applications of AI.
And do you guys differentiate physical AI versus AI for the real world in any way, or to you it's kind of all a spectrum?
Anytime it transcends beyond a pure software experience, it's different forms of AI in the real world, or physical AI. There's physics AI, which is Luminary Cloud, and then there's AI applied in the physical domain, and those can be separate.
Yeah. I always find myself kind of finding balance between those distinctions, where it's like, okay, if it's a hardware product, it's a robotics product, to me, that's very clearly physical AI. And then there's where the data inputs are from the physical world. So concrete industry or electrical data or something, but it's being manipulated in software. The output may be a dashboard that some, boots on the ground are using. It's hard sometimes. To me, I think it's really more a spectrum than like a hard and fast vertical, distinction.
Yeah, it's a great framework. I would guess we often think is that the IP is almost always still software driven.
Yeah.
And the way it shows up, the way it manifests, and how we interact with it can take different forms.
Yeah. For you personally, why this AI interaction with the physical world as opposed to, regular way software, which plenty of folks are making money on?
Yeah, and I have to caveat all this with, we still focus on the core of software investing as well.
Yeah.
We just view that the time is right. The next horizon is application of some of these advanced techniques, advanced technologies to the physical world. And the great news is that we can see the ROI in the strict value that some of these products can deliver today to specific use cases, and that makes the opportunity obvious when we can deliver those great products, when our founders can. The stat that is pretty well worn is less than 20% of global GDP comes from the digital world. And yes, it's massive and the source of much innovation and improved human condition, but there's still a lot of room for improvement in much of the rest of the world. I know your portfolio focuses on this a lot. You've got great examples of how technology can be brought to bear to dirty jobs.
I like looking at it from a lens of like labor shortages. I think
sure.
the dirty jobs came out of this evolution of labor shortages. But for me, the real like unlock and aha moment was this divide between tools available to digital workers and tools available to, let's call it, the steel-toed boots, is just getting wider and wider. And so that's kind of when I, probably 3 years ago started fishing in this category, which is to say, okay, well, who's actually developing these tools? And, you've got folks that have been around for a while, Service Titan and Procore and all this stuff.
Sure.
But with the last wave of AI, I mean, it just feels like every week there's somebody new servicing a frontline industry.
I could not agree more. And I think it speaks to something we've observed across IT, software, pure play software, and then the built world, which is when you as a talented founder can take a clean sheet approach to an existing known problem, a pain point, then you have an incredible leg up over just the last generation of products.
Yeah.
And so this clean sheet that so many can take today involves invocation of AI in the most advanced ways. And it can both yield better product, but also incredible time to market advantage.
Yeah. What are some examples in your portfolio where you've seen a company that is, using this kind of AI interaction with the physical world in a way that just pure play software wouldn't have solved the problem?
It's often elegant and powerful in its ease of use and ease deployment. A great example is our company Traction. And so this is an incredible product that includes both hardware and software. It's easy to deploy, and it drives advanced condition monitoring for industrial systems, rotating machinery. It's all on the backs of its team's stark focus on customer needs and what kind of product needs to be developed to deliver against those.
Yeah. What do you need to see from a founder that comes into that first pitch, that first meeting where there's that aha moment, you lean in? What are you looking for?
Yeah, so much of it comes down to let's talk about what's special here and let's start with that product. We think that the product is a reflection, it's a manifestation of what's unique about the founders, what's special about the team as well, but it's also how they have internalized the customer needs and then defined what's going to address those pain points in a product. So it often starts with, let's just talk product. Tell us what's going on here. Tell us what's happening at the heart of the product. Let's draw a diagram if we can and map out logically what the different elements of the system. And then we'll keep going and really drill in to understand where it is, where it's going.
Do you feel like with how fast everything is moving these days, how these new AI tools are coming out, the underlying models are getting better, do companies need to be multi-product within the first year, or what should product look like in that first year?
I love this question. And it happens, I'm thinking more about software.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen it in the physical world as much, but the long-term success for a startup has almost always been multi-product. These days, you can go 0 to first release of product in 9 months and have 10 different sub-products just because of the rapidity of development.
Yeah.
So we definitely see that in software. Have you come across it already in the
We have
physical world?
in 2 of our companies. I'll give one, Multitude Insights, which is AI for law enforcement. How do you just make it easier for the frontline patrol officers to input crime data as they're seeing it? It's like an Instagram thing. They take a picture, they take license plate information.
Some
dictation, upload it, right?
It's fantastic.
The second product that launched off of that, which again, just feels such an obvious extension, is SmartLink, which is now they have all this data. Okay, let's connect it. Hey, there's a string of home burglaries and it looks like the guy is robbing the same kind of house made by the same builder. The reason cops didn't know that is because they don't share information between precincts. So he could be doing the same crime in Burlingame, Redwood City, and Palo Alto, and those 3 police departments wouldn't know. And SmartLink became the connection between those 2. And now they go in and they go to a new police department and they say, can you give us the last 12 months of bulletins? We're going to upload it to SmartLink and we'll solve unsolved cases for you. The aha moment for a customer is immediate. And so that's where I think
that's really exciting.
Comes in.
And those 2 products were both fielded in the first.
The first year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congrats.
So
That's great.
Yeah, to me, I think that was the unlock for me. Why I asked the question to you, TJ, is this is a pre-Series A company, right? So now I think the expectation for a founder coming in at Series A, I think, is that you have to be multi-product. But I don't know. That might just be my bias.
I definitely like to see that. Sometimes I understand that first product can be, or we understand that first product can be still incredibly challenging.
Yeah.
Bigger, more complex physical systems that just need more great engineering bake time. So we don't have a hard and fast rule, but we do see it more often. And the expectations are moving up that incredible founders with a high cyclic rate are going to get to multi-product a lot faster than just a few years ago.
Yeah. Where do you feel like founders most often get stuck building product in physical industries? Is there like a trap that you see a lot of founders fall into?
I think it's tempting. We see the incredible intellectual horsepower from a lot of these teams. Sometimes they're coming out of advanced programs. The temptation for some incredibly smart people is to try to use first principles thinking to figure everything out. And that often breaks down when it is time to go from product definition to go to market. And you really need to be ready to lean on standing expertise and go to market, because it is something that's been seen and experimented with so many times before, that asking for help, bringing on the right talent is critical when it's time to start scaling.
Talking on this kind of topic of the technical PhD founder.
Sure.
How do you help them unlock that when you first meet them and you go, wow, this is clearly a product that is solving a need, but looking ahead, this founder might need some support. How do you support them in that journey?
Well, I think it comes down to a trusted relationship and something that is established for the long haul, and having the expertise. We as a firm operate as a team, go-to-market team that gets involved to help scale sales and to deliver well-qualified leads. But we've also seen a lot because we're a specialist and because we focus on we can be of good counsel. Before investment, it comes down to, let's talk about how we align on the upcoming needs, and do we see the same things, and are we all open to the kind of additional talent or resources that are necessary to look around the corner and be successful.
Yeah.
Have you seen that with some of your companies?
I have. I think for us, just by nature of what we do with storytelling, a lot of founders will come to us and will say, hey, I feel like there is a bigger story here that I'm not telling, that I'm not maybe getting across. And maybe they struggled with their fundraise because they weren't getting it across.
Yep.
And it's sometimes on me to just be creative and say, hey, you think you're building tools for homeowners, but actually what you're unlocking is way bigger than that, right?
Yeah.
And it's sometimes, I get it though, right? I get it from the lens of the founder where they say, I am in customer conversations every day. I'm just trying to solve the problem for the customer. But when you pick yourself up, you pick your head up from that and you go, but there's a narrative to be told to investors and a narrative that my employees need to hear. And it's not the same story.
There's different forms of storytelling.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's I'll just, on my own hobby horse, that is the biggest trap I feel a lot of technical founders especially fall into, where they tell the same story to 3 different audiences. And it's very easy to think that it's resonating because maybe it resonated with one, maybe with customers, or sometimes you have folks that are really good at fundraising.
Yeah.
And they're telling that fundraising story, but they're struggling to break through with customers. And you go, how do these guys raise 25 million, but the traction isn't there? And sometimes it's, they have to bring on the talent to say, no, it's a different story for customers, and here's how we tell it. So
it's great insight. I think in the past you've invoked the Steve Jobs saying about sell the end experience, not what it is.
Yeah.
And it also speaks to the fact that oftentimes really great marketing talent is some of the most difficult recruiting in startup world.
Yeah.
And so when you nail it, when you bring in somebody that can tell the story internally at a high rate when you're at scale, it is just off to the races.
I think the reason for that, TJ, is because it constantly changes, right? Good marketing, good design is always in conversation with what's already out there. So I'll give you a recent thing. Have you seen all these hype videos on Twitter and LinkedIn? Everybody's launching new, they're dropping $100,000 to launch their product with a hype video. So now everybody feels like they need a hype video. And I kind of had this conversation of, is your job as a marketer to get in there and deliver a launch or a hype video, or is it to actually drive a business outcome? Are you doing it because everybody else is doing it and you feel like you need to because, it resonates in the public landscape?
Yeah.
Do your customers actually care? Are they ever going to see this video, right? And so there's a lot of those conversations that we sometimes have with folks. Half the time, I'll have a founder come in and talk to us and they want to do PR. And we say, do you need new customers? They go, no, actually, we've got a pipeline out for the next 2 years. Do you need employees? No, I was at this company. It was a great company. I'm going to hire the 10 people that I used to work with.
Yeah,
investors?
Yeah.
I just closed $10 million.
Yeah.
What are you doing PR for, man? What's the goal?
That's fascinating. It's amazing. Yeah. And it makes me think about all the both online spend and then extension into sponsorship of huge brand name podcasts or digital ads on the side of the 101. Sometimes it can be hugely effective if you're clear-headed about who are you talking to and what's the message you want to get across.
Yeah.
But doing it just to be part of the the scene is probably not the right.
We're humans. There's ego involved. I get it. But I often feel like my role, my partner Vijay's role, is to kind of take a step back and say, what's the goal here, right? You got these resources. Yes, you can always go raise more funding. You could dilute yourself a little bit more.
Sure.
What are we really trying to achieve with this round that we've raised?
I like it.
And sometimes it means telling founders not to do something that they're coming to us for. They're saying, we want to come to you for PR. And I say, let's hold 6 months. Let's use it when you actually need it. Unless you're one of those companies that, you're in consumer and you constantly have to be out there. It's a different story.
Yeah.
But in our world, in B2B and physical AI, seed, Series A, I feel like you need one good launch announcement a year. And if you're able to really nail that and do it successfully, you feast off of that for the next 9 months. So
that's great insight.
Yeah.
That's good.
Coming back to some of your companies in your portfolio,
Sure.
and maybe if there's a through line across them, Skydio, Luminary Cloud, Encord, is there one kind of product through line that you see the best founders in those companies do that you think could be applicable to other founders?
It's really customer obsession and knowing that a great product is going to come through that intimate understanding of where the pain point is, and that job never stops. One of the things that we got most excited about when we were first meeting with the Encord team was that team defined its initial product vision as, we want to delight our customers and deliver a software product, which was starkly different from most of the other legacy offerings, which had a great revenue ramp for AI focused data management platforms. Great revenue ramp, but when you talk with the customers, they would admit large spend, but also that they were not happy and really dying to find something different and more enjoyable to use, frankly. The idea of delivering against that need was a great hallmark of, yes, we're listening to the customer, focused on a product solution and on delivering something that would be really scalable.
When you do those customer calls, what are the words or phrases or something that you're picking up on where you go, okay, these guys have cracked something?
We're looking for something special. It is, what was your life like before, and what is it now that you get to use this product? And so much is intonation. So reading a transcript doesn't really get it done. You get some core hypothesis to keep testing through higher volume, customer insights. But really the conversation is about emotion and about how much a team is wed to the experience of using a product.
That's a really good insight, because I use tools like AlphaSense and Tegas and these call things. And you're so right. When I think about it now, the transcript doesn't always fully capture the essence of what it is to just have that one-on-one conversation, do the primary research, which takes time. And I feel like, some of our peers cut corners on that stuff, but I find it so valuable when I hear from a customer and almost use it as a way to be like, well, what else are you using? What other markets could my company get into that they're not in today to understand the rest of their software spend?
I totally agree.
Let's talk a little bit about the venture market. You're a specialist fund. I spend a lot of time thinking about dirty, dusty, and dangerous industries, but we're not the only ones. There's a lot of generalist funds that also have teams that focus on this category.
Sure.
How has this kind of, bifurcation or barbelling of specialist and generalist funds affected how you invest in these companies in physical AI?
Well, I think writ large, again, we focus across the board on B2B.
Yeah.
We think that split is good for founders. And so we applaud more options for founders, and that they ultimately are the core constituency. I know you feel the same way.
Right.
When we consider how specialist firms show up versus the largest, we'll call them sometimes supermarket funds because they need to have one of everything on the shelf. We think that the amount of attention and the degree of just a direct fit between expertise, experience, and founder in a company strategy accrues most directly to the specialist firms. And that's really critical at the earliest stages. As you're going from 0 to 1, you're building the product, you're getting it to market. And then later on, when we're scaling, there is obviously, it can be great reason to bring in many larger investors and to keep powering towards IPO and it being a long-term enduring company.
Has there been a time that a founder came to you and chose you over maybe a generalist fund that he or she had a term sheet from?
Sure. I think it happens all the time. And we're always in a competitive cycle. Our founders are often very deliberate about who they're going to take money from. A great example stretching back a few years, was our very good fortune to get to work with the Verkada team when we led at Series A. My partner, Lakananth, had done a ton to understand the market it was attacking, the strategy, and I think really importantly, got to know the team and the product and drill into it to the point where it was clear that that was the right fit for them as they raised. That happens a lot. Sometimes we lose, we don't nail the round. That can happen for other reasons.
Yeah. Are there signals in that conversation or the multitude of conversations that you have with the founder where you kind of pick up, hey, they're looking for specialist expertise and a partner versus maybe optimizing for other things?
Yeah, I think a founder's readiness to drill into product and to talk about the unique scaling challenges that will ensue from those products, it really is a great indicator of whether we're going to be a good fit for them.
Yeah.
What do you see when you're connecting with founders?
We're a little bit earlier, and because we do seed stage, that's kind of my core spot. I find that it's the founders that I resonate with, to your point, that are customer obsessed. But then what they love about working with us is like, I am thorough as hell. We were talking about the example before we got on about like putting on the hard hat and going to a MRF, right? Or I invested in a founder last December, marketplace for construction supplies. I went out to Arizona and did a ride along with him for the whole day. Visited customers, had lunch with a couple of the guys that he was selling to, just got to see his day in the life. And competitive round, he dropped me off at the airport, believe it or not. And he goes, how much did you want? And I said, $1 million. He goes, I could probably get you $650. I said, okay, let's talk. And he told me later, we put the check in, and he told me later, he said, you were the only investor that flew out and spent the day with me. And there was the lead, and then there was everybody else he was trying to figure out in the round. And so I think there's a level of that where at the seed stage, founders just appreciate that you care about their business in that way. And so while we're not a specialist in that way where we only do dirty jobs investments or we only do energy or whatever, we're deep enough at that stage where I think founders appreciate that. So that's sort of been my
totally agree. Yeah. And I will acknowledge that there are many different pathways to success in venture capital.
Yeah,
but
agreed. Yeah.
It surprises me every time I realize that investors will bid on a company without having seen the product. No demo, or if it's a field deployment, somewhere outside of Silicon Valley, no visit to see it in action. And that is just the opposite end of where we come out.
Having been now at seed stage for 10, 11 years, it'll be 11 years in January. Every time that I have made a bet on a hot round without spending time with the founder, almost every time I've regretted it, with one exception. And every time that I've actually spent time with the founder, sometimes they don't work out, but they don't work out because of lack of trust and relationship with the founder. So
I got to imagine that you get the sense, maybe explicit, from the people you invest in that they value that investment of time, and it's a two-way evaluation, right?
Yeah. Again, there's a lot of ways to do this job, but to me, where I want to eventually get to a pretty concentrated portfolio, high conviction with my founders, I think you have to have that relationship.
I totally agree.
You have a very strong view on education being a important training ground for founders. We're at a time where people are writing checks to, kids coming out of high school. AI tools are being used to build products before somebody's even, graduated from that first level. Teal Fellowship and all these programs are out there to back young founders. Yeah. Why does education still matter when we've got AI as this great education tool that levels the playing field?
It's a really great topic. First I'll say, for some people, it makes total sense to drop out and build, but that's a personal decision. And where I'd call out, look at all the PhDs that are driving so much of the innovation in this AI wave. I don't think we've had a venture and a startup-based cycle in a long time that is so highly dependent on advanced degrees and some of the best research minds of our generation. So education is important, and there's empirical evidence of that. For an individual, personal decision, I think for all of us, we benefit if we can experience learning as a lifelong endeavor. So structured education is not just about knowledge accumulation, but about learning the skills for that lifelong learning and maturation, interpersonal experiences. And so where I disagree is the idea of programmatically encouraging people to stop a productive college experience in order to start a company. And the reason that I think it's dangerous is really just the potential damage that it creates to founders. It could yield great near-term investment opportunities for VCs, but ultimately, I think it starts to hint to people that are earlier in their careers that the next 3 to 5 years is all that matters, or 5 to 10 even. What I counsel to people coming out of college or just starting their careers is think in terms of 40 years. Whether you think that's exciting or not, that's likely about how long you're going to be working. And in that context, another couple of years of school, probably means something a bit different from if you're looking at just the next 5 years.
So you've got teenagers, somebody comes and hands your teenager a YC safe term sheet to go build something that they want to build. How do you counsel them?
Side hustle. you got 24 hours in every day. Just do both of it, right?
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. Thing that I really have been thinking about. I love my job and I love what I get to build, but there is so much you can do today and build today. And
Sure.
Side project, as an example, with my kid, he's playing with Legos. I'm taking pictures of stuff he builds. I'm like, I want to put this up on a website. You could vibe code that in an afternoon.
Yeah.
To me, the opportunity cost today for somebody who wants to build is in some ways just so high. What are you doing today that could be better than going and, building this dream project that you never thought was achievable, and now with the tools available to you is? And at the same time, because everybody can do it, I think it's just gotten so much harder and so much more competitive to build things that stand out.
I agree with that. And I would point out that you can honestly consider a side hustle until you see profound product market fit. And you don't have to drop out to get to MVP. So you can do both because you can get something going as a test case, at least in a weekend.
That's a fair point. You once told me the most common failure mode in tech is infinite extrapolation. Explain that concept, and then we can dig a little bit deeper into it.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's the segue rule.
Okay.
So the day before the segue was released, there was no segue. The day the segue was released, the segue existed. And then the next day, the prognosis was that the entire world was going to change. We're going to reconfigure cities so that the Segway would be the major prime mode of transportation. And that kind of extrapolation happens all the time. So the dot-com boom, there wasn't the internet, then there was, and then everything's going to be on the internet, including pet food and grocery delivery. So yes, timing is often the issue, not whether the prognosis is right. But the infinite extrapolation is often accelerating growth rates and accelerating adoption as opposed to any sort of asymptote. So if you miss the asymptotes, then you are somebody that's projecting the future are tempted to keep going and keep investing or building in a way that really just misses the adoption cycle.
Was there an example or something recently that you can think of where investors have fallen into that trap, or is there a vertical or category that you feel like is falling into the infinite extrapolation trap?
And I like somebody wrote recently, if you're not willing to make risky predictions, then you can't backtest them and see where you're wrong. So
right.
I'll make some predictions. I think that the consumer humanoid craze is a great example. And it is an example of if we start believing that some new technology is capable of everything, then we haven't collectively gone through, or whoever believes that, hasn't gone through the difficult work of saying, what exactly is it good for? What is the first thing that's going to really be dominant for? Which happens, again, all the time. If we think back to IBM's Watson experiment, this was a purpose-built computer. Purpose-built computers, purpose-built systems can win the day. And in Watson's case, it won the day for Jeopardy.
Yeah.
Dominating. It was great. But immediately after that, enterprise buyers and executives at IBM said, well, if it can win Jeopardy, what else can it do?
Can it solve cancer?
Yeah, and that was actually how it was marketed. So it's going to be, actually, it was triage for medical situations, but it's also sold as a expert Q&A system for huge organizations to pay millions for and then to benefit from. Didn't work. And it is just, I think, another stark example of build for a problem, create a product that is a direct hit for that problem, and don't start thinking that because it can do X, then Y is imminent.
I think about this with autonomous vehicles a lot. And the kind of thing of like, the timeline is the biggest question mark to me, right? But if everybody has autonomous vehicles and we somehow get to a point where vehicle ownership doesn't make sense, parking lots no longer make sense, auto body repair shops no longer make sense, vehicle parts manufacturers. There's so much of the economy, the American economy, I'll say specifically, Europe has a different problem, that is built around vehicle ownership.
Sure.
And so I fall into that trap sometimes where I go, yeah, I wonder if that's a market that is going to be forever changed by, there were, I don't know how many Waymos on the road 5 years ago,
Yep.
and now you don't miss one in California. So it's kind of an interesting trap to mentally fall into when these opportunities come your way.
So yeah, and like keep that going. There'll be no garages on homes anymore. Short garage door opener companies. And yes, the future is bright. And I give a giant hat tip to Google for riding the data curve down and making Waymo work. It's really an incredible example of tenacity and great engineering. A lot of very talented engineers and solving through scale. Very few companies in the world could have ever done that. And so Google and Waymo deserve a ton of credit. The other one I think of, Jay, is the common dinner conversation around universal basic income, right?
Yeah.
So how long do we have until UBI is a thing? And it's almost always on the tail end of the logical chain of AI is amazing, AGI is close, and once computers can do all the jobs, which obviously isn't far away, we're going to have UBI because people will need a basic income, which is an interesting chain of logic, but is definitely not going to happen the next 5 years, probably not the next 50 years. And it ignores the historical record about technological dislocations and what it means for different, better jobs for humans.
I'm going to be a cynic for a second, if you don't mind. I think it's a marketing tactic. I think you have to put
I love this. I haven't thought about this.
Yeah, no, this is my hot take for today.
Yeah.
I think you have to paint some immensely life-changing, planet-changing goal out there to go raise the quantums of capital needed to keep the chain going, right? And like, look, I'm a believer in AI. I think it is going to change billions of lives. I see it already today. Like, teams we work with that are internationally are able to produce so much quality work because what they didn't have before maybe was the context of working with an American customer. But now through AI, through voice agents, to whatever, they're able to deliver on that. So now suddenly there's arbitrage that you can leverage. Fine. AI is great. But in order to go raise $1 trillion or get the U.S. government to backstop you potentially, you need to paint some really big target out there. That's my lens on why.
I am a giant fan of cynical hot takes. So I have not contemplated that, but it's gonna stick in my head. And I can't argue with that.
Capital raising is an exercise in marketing. And at the end of the day, one of the reasons that founders come and work with us is because we help them think through like where the marketing resonates. So I naturally see it in my everyday where I go, does that person actually believe what they're saying, or is that marketing to convert something? And I haven't figured out if AGI is a marketing thing yet, but that's my kind of cynical take on it.
How does that apply to an auto OEM who is going to create millions of humanoid robots?
There is a labor shortage reason for that, though. So I think there is a little bit of a different story when you have BMW saying we're going to put this in our factory, or any auto OEM saying we're going to put this in our factory. They can't hire enough electricians, welders. Like, that is a very, very clear need. Now, one could make the argument that like point solutions already exist to solve that. There are, Fanuc and KUKA arms that you can put in there to do soldering and do, wiring, and insertion still a problem that has to get figured out. But this stuff is on its way. Why do I need to put a human being sized person in that spot? That I don't know. I don't know why they have all of a sudden decided that humanoid is the answer as opposed to a bunch of point solutions. Maybe somebody did the math and said, instead of buying a welder and a solderer and an electrician and sander, I actually general purpose. Get general purpose robot.
Well, it would be nice. So if it works, fantastic. I think there will be a stopping place in between stationary arms and humanoids that includes wheeled systems. But that's one possibility. The other interesting technical thread is, do generalist models, including the foundational models that robotics can rely on, perform better if they're generalized as opposed to very specifically built? And the jury's still out on that.
Why do you think we went away from drones on that stuff? Like, I went back to looking at Kibo Robotics, and I just felt like before they got acquired by Amazon, the natural extension in the warehouse was to go from two-dimensional ground base to now get in the air. You've already got all of the system mapped out, but you don't see drone-based solutions for factory settings as much as one would have imagined.
Yeah, and I think it's so much of a factory or warehouse depends on moving goods that the drones are a great source of intelligence, but you need something that can carry and manipulate in a better way.
That's fair.
One thing, since we're talking drones, one of my favorite proof points of how AI is improving the physical world is our portfolio company Skydio, and its use as a first responder. So the best, most visceral example of this I can give is if jurisdiction that has Skydio as a first responder and you call for help, then the police can have a drone on station 90 seconds, under 2 minutes, a much faster response rate than patrol vehicle can get there.
Yeah.
And not only that, it can provide insight back to the responding officers. There were 2 kids in one county in the U.S. that were out back firing a handgun, so legitimate danger.
Yeah.
And the 911 was called. The drone responded. Then the officers showed up, but they were able to know from the overwatch from the drone that these are 2 8-year-old kids. Yeah. So let's not go in. Let's actually diffuse the situation and keep people safe.
See, I love public safety as a use case for AI. Like we have a company that's doing voice AI for 911 and 311 operators. So I'm imagining a combination of an agentic solution to say, oh, it's not an emergent threat. Maybe it's a vehicle break-in or something like that. And you can actually send a drone there to do an intake of the situation and assess it before you send a human being. No human in the loop needed, right? From call in to dispatch to data gathering can all be done agentically.
And this is not a 5-year away vision. This is totally possible today, and that's what makes it so exciting.
Yeah, no, it's totally where I get excited is I see those like near term.
I agree.
That's I think the trap sometimes my fellow software investors fall into is they think about these things as being deep tech. And we don't have a term yet for this like physical AI, but near tech. Like this is not, drilling holes in the Sahara or creating wave energy out in the middle of the Pacific. Like this is
fusion.
Or fusion, right? Like, this is real. Like this is going to be happening in the next 5 years.
I think when I think about the distinction, deep tech requires additional science. And again, in so many cases, we are operating as a pure software investor or software applied to the real world, but almost always it is the software that is the key lever, the key IP, and that means that enough development, enough talented translation of customer pain to software yields a product.
Yeah. On that topic of speed, right? So AI, I feel like has reset people's minds on what good margins, what good speed, what moats look like.
Yep.
And you've even seen some top firms recently that have said high margin signal, low AI usage. So actually, we don't want super high margins. It's a bad product outcome. Where do you see unhealthy growth in AI companies today? And what does unhealthy growth actually look like?
Yeah, I hope that doesn't make me seem, I guess, simple. But I think negative gross margins is dangerous if there isn't a trajectory towards healthy gross margins. First principle is to be an enduring company. Having the company make money every time it sells a product is probably job number one. And then a trend line towards profitability and generating cash is the longer term or longest term hill to climb. Nobody should forget that in the dot-com boom, public companies were valued based on eyeballs. And this was the assertion that the world has changed. Things are different this time. And we should just see how many subscribers there are, how many users there are of a product when we try to value it. That didn't work out. It's not going to work out in this case if there isn't this ability to translate or transition into positive gross margin.
When you're evaluating a company that's coming into you and you're looking at gross margin numbers that are maybe a little bit lower, but growth numbers that are higher, what do you need to see to believe, hey, this is something that can actually get to that level of gross margin to be a sustainable business?
I think the companies that have a credible trajectory towards great gross margin aren't dependent on a substrate of cost. If I am spending all my money on NVIDIA GPUs or more likely on API calls and hitting LLMs, then I'm dependent on their cost profiles over time in a way that is a little shaky. Now, there are ways to address that, and smart teams can get proactive about that, but trading very negative gross margins for maximum growth is not the long-term solution.
Yeah. And I from a lens of a fiduciary, right, as people that have taken people's money and are responsible to them on that, markups feel nice in the near term and probably help you raise the next fund, but those chickens come home to roost is sort of my perspective.
It's true. Yeah. And again, this happens Seems like every 3 years.
It feels like it's happening faster and faster, is I think my read on it.
Yeah, it may be the case.
Yeah. We had talked about this ahead of time. One of the things that made you feel like a kindred spirit was this topic of rejection. And it feels like, it's a constant thing when you're a founder. It's constant as a VC. When I raised my first fund, I talked to 440 LPs and, less than 20% of them came in.
For sure.
How has rejection shaped the way that you invest and work with founders?
I think there's a temptation for us all to portray our trajectories as well-planned and linear, and it's almost never the case. So we should release on that. I had mentioned I applied to 5 grad schools, got into one only, and it happened to be the only one that didn't interview me live, which gave me a lot of pause.
That hurts a little bit.
It hurts, right? What does that say? I'm still noodling on that, but I think I know. Things are almost never linear. There are inherent ups and downs. Talking to 400 potential LPs, it's the same journey that our founders have to go through in a lot of cases. Every long-term incredible business success story has its own points of crises and ups and downs, and it comes down to how do we just grind through it in a way that preserves first and foremost our ability to respect ourselves and operate over the long haul with a great reputation, but secondly is we're still in the game, and you got to be in the game to win ultimately.
Yeah. I tell founders this when we were talking about rejection, founder had gone through a whole wave of fundraising and
Sure.
things weren't going so well. And I was kind of telling him, I was like, well, what are you learning from these things? And he goes, I don't know, man, I'm just learning. I got to work on the pitch or this, that, the other. And I had to stop him and say, look, I think from my lens, right, rejection is either an opportunity to learn something about the product you're selling, the market you're in, or about yourself. And if you're not taking the time, and it doesn't have to be after some people, it's not a fit. It doesn't mean it reflects on you,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
But after a string of it, I think it's wonderful to sit back and take the time and say, what am I missing? What am I not seeing? Lean on the people you trust to kind of give you that feedback and action it. And there is, again, I just find founders that I love working with that are honest about that stuff, where you will have a conversation, whether it's after a board meeting or just after, a product launch or anything. You say, okay, what didn't work and why? And what did you learn from it? And the ones that are reflective enough to sort of share, hey, I thought this and I got it wrong. I don't know. I feel so much because I'm like, you worked really hard on this. It didn't work.
Sure.
But you're going to get stronger from it. And that's never in doubt with those folks that are taking the time to actually be reflective about it.
I agree, and I acknowledge it's hard because there's always 1,000 things to do, and to take a step back and to actually think about that and ask for a sounding board is the mark of a growth-oriented founder.
Yeah, but vulnerability is so special. Like when somebody comes in and says, hey, I think my co-founder and I need to maybe speak with a management coach. You go, wow, like you came to that. I didn't have to tell you. You came to that realization yourself.
Sure.
Is actually a really, really powerful thing too.
I agree.
I appreciate that.
I agree.
Well, listen, this has been such a fun conversation. I want to close with maybe looking ahead. 10 years from now, what widely held view in tech or venture do you think is going to be completely wrong?
Pure play defense tech investing is a good idea. And
please elaborate.
I think that there are great teams building very important products in this domain. And I know that the federal government is the worst customer in the world. So while I don't want anybody to stop important mission, I recommend building in dual use or multiple customers whenever possible.
Can we double click on that? So,
Sure.
You referenced your time at In-Q-Tel. What did you learn being on that side of the table and seeing how the federal government bought software and technology that you want founders in that space to know today to maybe avoid some of those pitfalls?
Well, it just takes forever and it's capricious. And if you are selling into the federal government, you can count on very talented users, exquisite problems, an important mission that should be supported. But you can also count on heartache and things taking far longer than they should and decisions that are pretty opaque. And so having multiple markets that you're selling into, and we should acknowledge Palantir, fantastic defense-focused success story, also has, I think, it's still a majority of its business coming from non-defense customers.
Yeah. Is there an archetype of founder that you think succeeds in selling into those regulated or government-type industries? that you've seen?
I think it's the same founder that resonates with customers writ large. It oftentimes it's one that can play the long ball, not push for sales, talk product, talk how the product applies to the mission. That's the same recipe for a lot of these sales cycles to enterprises too. It's empathy, and it's what is the pain that we're gonna help address.
One piece of advice that I keep ruminating on, which is that founders need 3 narratives, not one. And then the other hot take was it's all marketing. And honestly, my other hot take on that hot take is I don't want it to stop, because I mean, you just think about how dependent our U.S. economy, and I would argue the world economy, is on the success of a handful of AI companies. This music stops, it has
It'll be real damage.
Reverberations everywhere.
I agree.
And so from that standpoint, the people that are rooting for the failure of the AI labs, I don't think fully appreciate what they're rooting for. And so to me, I want these companies to be successful, but I'm also world weary enough to recognize sometimes when, you know, you're putting a big thing like AGI out there as this goal to go after, when really you're developing life-changing. But that's the crazy thing to me about being in this industry.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
I think we are backing and working with founders that are building really amazing things. But in order to keep the venture capital train going, sometimes you have to overpromise. And then you feel like there's an extent to which you have to then deliver on that overpromise. And not everybody does. You know, WeWork was a prime example, New York company, but
Sure.
I'll talk about that.
Yeah.
He promised a lot. He was selling real estate. Like, this is fine. It's a great business. You can make a lot of money selling real estate. Why did he have to promise elevating everybody's consciousness and community adjusted EBITDA to get there, right? And so that to me is where I sometimes find myself like in two minds, where I go, yeah, no, I totally understand the game that's being played. You have to sell a really big vision to go raise the quantum of capital you're raising.
Sure.
But at the same time, like, I wish we didn't have to do that. You could just go build really great product and sell it to customers who want it.
Well, and I think the best founders sell a long-term vision that's both exciting and possible.
Yeah.
And there are many of those. I don't think it has to get into crazy hyperbole for success. The other thing, some of the observations are intellectually fascinating and I think correct. So if we think about the circular economy that is resulting from everybody funding everybody else in the large cap AI scene, that does feel a lot like stacked risk, like we had with the financial crisis in 2008 with all the collateralized debt obligations. It doesn't mean that, while that is true, it doesn't mean that it has to fail dramatically.
No.
And I think even if there is a bit of the music stopping, there is still profound value that has been built and that can't be taken back. Worst case scenario, it's Panama Canal story where it's halfway built and somebody else completes it, and then the whole world gets to benefit from this new technology.
Well, that's naturally going to happen, TJ. I think in AI, like anything else, I remember when Uber rides to the airport were $4 and it was all venture, subsidized.
Sure, yeah.
And AI, to a degree, is venture subsidized. These tokens are going to cost more. The amount of value that people are able to capture off of using, agentic workflows and LLMs is incredible today. And that's why I'm like, please, everybody use it today, because it's the cheapest it's ever going to be. And then there's a point where it's going to become more expensive, but the value is still going to be there, right? So to the people who are rooting for the failure of these things, I don't think are realizing what they're rooting for, because there is tremendous amount of value that's created today. And even if it doubles in cost, my OpenAI subscription probably should cost 4 times what it costs. Sam, if you're listening, please don't raise the rates.
Would you pay it?
I would. I use it a lot. Like, I use it in ways to make myself better. I use it to, challenge my own assumptions in a way where sometimes I'm just thinking through a market or a deal or anything like that. $200 is nothing for that, right? If I employed somebody whose sole job it was to sharpen me as an investor, I can get away paying them $200 a month for that. And so I think, to me, there is a real just golden moment that we're in right now. And I want it to continue, but as a realist and a rationalist, I know that it's not going to. As an investor, how do you plan, knowing that the cliff could be years from now, could be 6 months from now? How do you plan as an investor for that future?
We focus on really special products and enduring businesses that are going to be great regardless of where we are in the capital cycle.